This is the Barbados Today evening news for Thursday, March 22nd. Thank you for joining us. I am Marie-Claire Williams. We begin with news that the General Secretary of the Barbados Workers Union, Toni, says she is not surprised at government's position on salary negotiations. In a March 20th memo addressed to Moore, the Permanent Secretary, Alison Fort, informed her that the Ministry of Finance had advised that the current economic conditions do not allow for pay increase for public officers. Fort says he was further directed that the unions should focus on non-salary items. Additionally, he informed the BWU that the request for a 15% hike across the board for the period April 2016 to March 2018 cannot be accommodated at this time. But responding to Fort this afternoon, Moore dismissed what she called a wishy-washy directive from the Ministry of the Civil Service, and she said the union will meet to determine its response next week.
There's no discussion following a commitment that after its first quarter performance, the NSRL, the increased NSRL, would have been reviewed and then its performance brought back to the social partners for discussion, where, amongst other things, we would be able to determine if, based on that performance, a salary increase or an adjustment of any form was possible for civil servants. Although that discussion has not taken place, we are presented with this correspondence saying no further discussions. And notwithstanding the fact that the cabinet restored its 10% without any efforts being made to restore the public servants, whether it was via an increase or via a refund of income tax or any other measure, this is the kind of response that we get in the form that we get it. And notwithstanding the fact that there has been slow progress, less than adequate progress in approving appointments, which is the only other item that the Barbados Workers Union proposed to have handled in this current round of negotiations. This wishy-washy directive to the Ministry of the Civil Service, handed down then to the Barbados Workers Union and other unions, is what we have to work with. And again, I say it is no surprise.
Meanwhile, General Secretary of the National Union of Public Workers, Rosalyn Smith, says she is disappointed in government's decision to abandon further salary talks. And she told Barbados Today the Executive and National Council will likely meet next week to consider their options.
The position is that we have submitted 22 non-salary issues and we know that they're ongoing. But in respect of the salaries, that matter would have to be referred to executive and council to await a decision. We have our conference and Workers Week ending Saturday. After this week, we will set a date to meet with the executive.
The Assistant Superintendent of the Criminal Investigations Unit, Jefferson Clark, is warning companies and individuals to be on the lookout in light of what he says appears to be an increase in criminal activity. According to him, it particularly relates to check fraud, and other areas of concern include skimming, phishing, and credit card fraud.
Check fraud is still a big issue in Barbados. We're seeing a lot more sophistication though in the types of fraud where people are actually using information from legitimate businesses and making checks that purport to be from that business place. And we're seeing large checks sometimes over $100,000. And that's something that is new. Before you would see more dishonored checks where maybe some person doesn't have enough funds in their account and maybe they're doing business and making payment and the check actually is dishonored. And we're also seeing people creating fraudulent documents to say that I'm working at a particular place. You know, I'm working at a particular place and I'm working for this type of salary. And that information is then used maybe to financial institution to get loans. So these are all new types of frauds that we're seeing.
Clark was speaking to reporters on the sidelines of Credit Info Barbados Limited Effective Credit Management and Debt Recovery this morning. Sports now. West Indies opener Chris Gayle says he's thrilled to be playing in next year's World Cup in England, and he says he will focus on fitness in the interim as he prepares for what will be his final global 50 overs tournament. Gayle was part of the Caribbean side that defeated Scotland yesterday in their final Super 6 match of the ongoing ICC World Cup qualifiers.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
Thank you for staying with us. We're back with news from the region, and we go to Antigua, where Prime Minister Gaston Brown says his first order of business after being re-elected last night was to address the concerns of public servants. Brown and his Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party swept the polls in yesterday's election, winning 15 of the 17 seats in Parliament.
I gave them undertaking about, a week ago. I said to them it will be one of the priority issues in which we will try and accelerate the negotiations. Clearly, we do not have control over the negotiations. Ultimately, it will be left to them and the type of demands that they make. If they make unreasonable demands, the negotiations will be protracted, and it would be as a result of the unreasonable demands. But on the basis that we're able to reach consensus, I'm pretty sure that we'll be able to deal with that matter pretty quickly and have it resolved.
On the international scene, U.S. President Donald Trump today signed a presidential memorandum that could impose tariffs on billions of dollars of imports from China. The move, however, was removed from threats that could have ignited a global trade war with Beijing. We get the details in this Reuters report.
It's going to make us a much stronger, much richer nation.
President Donald Trump on Thursday set the stage for tariffs of as much as $60 billion on Chinese imports, a move likely to unleash retaliation from China amid rising fears of a global trade war.
This is the first of many.
Following through on his America First agenda, Trump signed a presidential memorandum targeting, quote, China's economic aggression. He says China has engaged in the theft of U.S. technology secrets over decades. The threatened tariffs follow an investigation by the U.S. Trade Representative that he said showed Beijing had browbeaten U.S. companies into handing over their intellectual property as a price of doing business in China. The findings also say that Chinese had in some cases been stealing intellectual property outright or buying U.S. firms just to get access to their technology. Trump says those actions have contributed to a massive trade imbalance with China and drained away U.S. jobs.
It is the largest deficit of any country in the history of our world.
Reporter David Lauder is on the story.
This is a very slow-moving train that Donald Trump has set in motion. There's a lengthy consultation period for the list of products that will be put under tariffs in which interested parties, the industries, importers can object. So there's going to be a furious amount of lobbying to try and get excluded from any tariffs that Trump may be considering.
Beijing pushed back Thursday, denying the charges and preparing a range of responses, possibly cutting back imports from U.S. farmers. Thursday's move is Trump's most dramatic on trade so far.
That's the evening news. Remember, you can get more on our website, www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, and like us on Facebook. We're on Izumi Media in bus terminals and on Screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. You can also find us on Mix 96.9 FM. I am Marie Claire Williams. Good evening.